Imagine a circle of enormous stones rising from the misty plains of southern England, a structure so old that it predates the pyramids of Egypt and even the invention of writing in Europe. Stonehenge, just the name alone carries with it a sense of awe, mystery, and timeless power. For thousands of years, people have looked at this circle of stones and asked the same question: who built it and why? Could this monument, standing silently for more than 4,000 years, hold the key to one of humanity's greatest unsolved puzzles? From legends of giants hauling stones across the land to astonishing theories of cosmic alignments, Stonehenge has inspired myths, scholarship, and speculation in equal measure. Some see it as a grand temple, others as a sophisticated observatory, and a few believe it to be the work of knowledge far beyond what Neolithic humans should have possessed. In this journey, we'll explore the origins of Stonehenge, not only through archaeology and history, but also through myths, alternative theories, and cutting-edge scientific research. You will see how legends of wizards and ancient kings intertwine with hard evidence of migration, burial, and celestial study. You'll compare conventional explanations with the bold claims of alternative thinkers, weighing the strengths and weaknesses of each. And in the end, it won't be me who tells you the answer. It will be you who decides. Was Stonehenge the crowning achievement of simple farming communities, a sacred machine built to track the heavens, or a relic of lost knowledge whose meaning has slipped beyond the reach of history? One thing is certain: Stonehenge is not just a pile of rocks. It is a message carved in stone, left by a civilization that wanted to be remembered. But what was that message? To uncover it, we first need to step back and ask, what exactly is Stonehenge, and why is it so important in the story of humanity? What exactly is Stonehenge? At first glance, it seems deceptively simple. A circle of towering stones, some capped with lintels, standing in the open landscape of Salisbury Plain in southern England. Yet beneath its silent presence lies a complex structure built in multiple stages over more than a millennium. Archaeologists believe the earliest phase began around 3000 BCE, when a circular ditch and bank were dug into the chalk. Centuries later came the massive upright sarsen stones, each weighing up to 25 tons, and the smaller bluestones transported from Wales, over 150 miles away. By 1500 BCE, the iconic form of Stonehenge as we know it today had taken shape. Its scale alone makes it extraordinary. While civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt were experimenting with cities and monumental architecture, communities in Britain, without writing, wheels or iron tools, were somehow organizing the immense labor required to quarry, transport, and arrange these stones. It is no wonder that historians have long placed Stonehenge alongside the pyramids of Giza or the statues of Easter Island as one of humanity's great enigmas. But why was it built? That is the heart of the mystery. Was Stonehenge a temple dedicated to ancient deities, a cemetery for powerful ancestors, or an early observatory tracking the sun and moon? Some scholars suggest it might have been all of these things at once, a place where religion, astronomy, and community converged. The rarity of Stonehenge adds to its puzzle. While stone circles exist across the British Isles, none match its scale, precision, or enduring power. It is both unique and yet part of a larger Neolithic tradition, leaving us to wonder whether it was a sacred center that drew people from far and wide. This leads us to the central question: could Stonehenge really have been constructed with the limited technology of Neolithic farmers? Or does its existence hint at a deeper, more mysterious story? To approach that question, we must begin where all great mysteries start, with legends. Before archaeology, before science, before carbon dating, the story of Stonehenge was told through myth, tales of wizards, giants, and kings. These legends, though dismissed by historians, may hold clues to how ancient people themselves understood the stones. Long before archaeologists brought their spades to Salisbury Plain, stories about Stonehenge circulated in the imagination of Britain. Medieval chroniclers, writing centuries after the stones were already ancient, filled the gaps in knowledge with myth and magic. One of the most enduring legends connects Stonehenge to Merlin, the wizard of Arthurian lore. According to Geoffrey of Monmouth, writing in the 12th century, the stones originally stood in Ireland. Giants had carried them there from Africa, and with their vast strength, they arranged them in a mystical circle. When King Aurelius Ambrosius sought a grand memorial for fallen nobles, Merlin advised him to transport this giant's dance to England. With sorcery and cunning, Merlin supposedly moved the stones across the sea and set them in place at Salisbury. To the medieval mind, this explained both the monument's grandeur and its inexplicable presence. Another tale links the stones to Arthur himself, with the suggestion that they were raised as a place of healing, where the magic of the stones could cure sickness. Folklore also whispered that Stonehenge marked the burial ground of powerful kings, or that it was built by giants who wished to leave a monument to their vanished race. Of course, modern archaeology rejects these accounts as literal history. There is no evidence of giants hauling stones from distant continents, nor of Merlin's magical hand in their construction. These are myths, woven from the imagination of later generations who could not comprehend how ordinary people might achieve such extraordinary feats. Yet legends often serve as vessels for cultural memory. Perhaps the tales of giants reflect real memories of the colossal labour required to move and raise the stones. Perhaps the image of healing is connected to the blue stones, which some believe were valued for their sacred or medicinal qualities. And the connection to kings and warriors may echo the fact that burials were indeed found near Stonehenge, suggesting it was tied to rituals of death and ancestry. So, while we cannot treat these stories as fact, they reveal how deeply Stonehenge impressed itself upon human consciousness. It was never seen as ordinary. It was always something greater, something that demanded explanation, even if that explanation was magic. But to move from legend to reality, we must turn to the soil itself. Archaeology has unearthed hard evidence, tools, bones and stone fragments that tell us when and how Stonehenge was built. And in those findings, we begin to see the outlines of a more grounded story, one of farmers, labourers, and rituals carried out under the vast Neolithic sky. When spades first cut into the earth around Stonehenge in the 20th century, the picture of its construction began to shift from legend to evidence. Archaeologists uncovered that the monument was not built all at once, but in a series of phases, stretching across more than 1,000 years. The earliest stage, around 3000 BCE, was little more than a circular ditch with banks and wooden posts. Nothing like the towering stones we see today. Yet this marked the beginning of a site destined to evolve into something monumental. By 2500 BCE, the blue stones arrived. These smaller stones, some weighing up to 4 tons, were transported from the Preseli Hills of Wales, nearly 150 miles away. The sheer logistics raise eyebrows. Without wheels, metal tools, or beasts of burden, how did Neolithic people manage such a feat? Mainstream theories suggest they were dragged overland on wooden sledges, perhaps floated along rivers and coastlines on rafts. Still, even these explanations strain under the weight of such labour. The final and most dramatic stage involved the sarsen stones, the enormous uprights and lintels that define Stonehenge today. These giants, each up to 25 tons, came from the Marlborough Downs about 20 miles north. To raise them, workers likely dug deep pits, tipped the stones upright with ropes, and levered them into place using wooden frameworks. Holes in the ground and wear marks on stones provide clues that such methods were possible, though no one can say exactly how many people it required. Estimates range from hundreds to thousands. Alongside these architectural feats, archaeologists found traces of cremated human remains buried within the circle, some of the earliest evidence of burial practices in Britain. This suggests Stonehenge was more than an engineering marvel. It was sacred ground, a place where life, death, and ritual converged. The mainstream explanation, therefore, is that Stonehenge was the product of Neolithic farmers and Bronze Age communities, people who lived in small villages but came together for monumental tasks. The site may have served as a ceremonial hub, a burial site for elites, and perhaps even a calendar aligned with the sun's movements. Yet even with this evidence, mysteries remain. Why were the bluestones dragged such great distances when local stone was abundant? What ceremonies demanded such effort? And how did societies without centralized states organize the labor to achieve it? The orthodox theory answers many questions with careful data, but it also leaves gaps wide enough to invite speculation, and it is into those gaps that alternative explanations, some bold, others fantastical, step forward. Could Stonehenge have been more than a graveyard or temple? Could it have served as a sophisticated observatory, or even something far beyond our imagination? If orthodox archaeology presents Stonehenge as the work of determined farmers and ritual communities, alternative theories push the story into more dramatic realms. The first and most enduring of these is the idea that Stonehenge was an astronomical observatory, a prehistoric calendar set in stone. Standing within the circle during midsummer, one can see the sun rise directly over the heel stone, an upright positioned outside the main ring. At midwinter, the sun sets in perfect alignment with the central axis. These alignments are not accidental. To many, they suggest that Stonehenge functioned as a solar and perhaps even a lunar observatory, tracking the cycles of the heavens. Some researchers have gone further, arguing that the arrangement of stones could predict eclipses or map complex celestial patterns. If true, this would make Stonehenge one of the most advanced scientific instruments of its time. Then there is the link to Druids, the priestly class of ancient Celtic societies. From the 17th to the 19th century, antiquarians promoted the idea that Druids built Stonehenge as a temple for their rituals. The imagery was compelling. Robed figures, chanting beneath the stones, honouring their gods of nature. Yet modern dating shattered this theory. The Druids emerged more than 1,000 years after Stonehenge's construction. Still, the image persists in popular imagination, a reminder of how myths can cling even when history disproves them. Beyond history and science lie even more speculative claims. Some believe Stonehenge could not have been constructed with Neolithic tools alone. They propose that lost technologies, or even visitors from beyond Earth, might have played a role. To these thinkers, the precision of the stone alignments and the transportation of massive blocks over great distances point to knowledge we do not yet understand. Satellite enthusiasts point out geometric patterns across ancient sites worldwide, suggesting a hidden global plan. But these arguments, while captivating, have weaknesses. The astronomical alignment theory is supported by clear visual evidence, yet critics argue that alignments can be coincidental. After all, with dozens of stones, some lines will inevitably match celestial points. The Druid theory crumbles under the weight of chronology. As for alien intervention, it raises more questions than it answers, offering no material evidence beyond the mystery itself. Still, it is undeniable that Stonehenge was more than a mere pile of rocks. Its builders cared deeply about the sun, the seasons, and perhaps forces we cannot fully grasp. Whether as a calendar, a ritual site, or a symbolic meeting of heaven and earth, Stonehenge transcends simple explanation. And as modern science advances, new tools have begun to peel back layers of the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar, DNA analysis, and digital reconstructions are revealing details hidden for millennia. The next step in our journey takes us from speculation to the cutting edge of discovery. In the last few decades, Stonehenge has become more than just an ancient ruin. It has become a laboratory for some of the most advanced scientific methods in archaeology. Technologies like ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry, and drone surveys have transformed the way we see the site. What once seemed like an isolated circle of stones is now understood as part of a vast ceremonial landscape. One of the most striking discoveries came at Durrington Walls, a massive Neolithic settlement located just a few miles from Stonehenge. Excavations revealed traces of wooden structures, feasting remains, and even entire neighborhoods, suggesting that thousands of people once gathered here, perhaps seasonally, to participate in rituals linked to the stones. Some archaeologists propose that Durrington Walls represented the land of the living, while Stonehenge itself symbolized the land of the dead, two halves of a spiritual journey. Even more revelations came from radar surveys, which uncovered hidden features beneath the soil, pits, avenues, and circles of buried stones stretching for miles. These findings suggest that Stonehenge was not an isolated monument, but the centerpiece of a much larger sacred complex. It was a stage set within a web of ritual pathways, connecting people to the land and sky in ways we are only beginning to understand. Genetic and isotope analysis have also changed the narrative. Studies of cremated remains found at Stonehenge show that some individuals came from as far away as Western Wales, the same region as the Bluestones. This strongly implies that the choice of stones was symbolic, perhaps linking distant homelands to a central gathering point. Instead of a local project, Stonehenge may have been a national or even international one, uniting scattered communities in a shared act of devotion. What does this mean for our understanding of its builders? Far from being primitive farmers, these Neolithic societies demonstrated remarkable social organization. They coordinated massive projects, moved stones across landscapes, and designed spaces that reflected both earthly and cosmic concerns. Modern science confirms their ingenuity, while also deepening the mystery. We can trace their tools and methods, but the ultimate meaning remains elusive. The strength of these discoveries lies in their reproducibility. Scientists can rerun isotope tests, remap underground features, and cross-verify results across disciplines. Yet the weakness remains in interpretation. We know the stones align with the solstice, but does that mean Stonehenge was a calendar, a temple, or both? We know people travelled great distances, but were they pilgrims, labourers, or honoured dead? As the evidence piles up, one truth becomes clear. Stonehenge is not a simple monument to the past. It is a window into the minds and lives of people who lived 5,000 years ago. Still, the fog of time leaves gaps. And in those gaps, our imagination, shaped by both science and myth, continues to search for answers. But how do we balance what we know against what we only guess? To do that, we must step back, review the evidence and ask, where does solid fact end, and where does speculation begin? At this point in our journey, we've crossed from legend into archaeology and from speculation into modern science. Yet even with all the discoveries of the past century, the story of Stonehenge remains incomplete. To understand why, it helps to separate what we know from what we think we know. First, the common misconceptions. For centuries, Stonehenge was linked to the Druids, imagined as a temple where Celtic priests performed their mysterious rites. But radiocarbon dating proves Stonehenge was completed more than 1,000 years before Druids ever walked the land. Another error is the idea that it is a single, unified monument. In truth, it was built in multiple phases, evolving as generations added and rearranged stones, turning it into a palimpsest of rituals and beliefs rather than a single act of construction. There are also pitfalls in interpreting evidence. Maps and diagrams can be misleading, showing alignments with the sun or stars that may be coincidental. Translations of ancient myths can be mistrusted, colored by the assumptions of later scribes, and images, whether satellite photos or early sketches, can create illusions of patterns that vanish under closer scrutiny. These errors remind us how fragile interpretation can be when we try to look back across 5 millennia. The gaps in our knowledge are just as telling. There are still many unanswered questions. Why choose bluestones from Wales instead of local rock? What ceremonies were performed inside the circle? Was the monument primarily religious, astronomical, social, or all of these at once? The absence of written records means we rely entirely on material remains, and those remains are fragmentary at best. To judge any theory about Stonehenge, we must ask, what makes good evidence? Archaeologists stress 3 criteria: primary sources, reproducibility, and a multidisciplinary approach. Primary sources are the remains themselves: bones, tools, stones, and soil layers that can be measured directly. Reproducibility means that another researcher, using the same methods, can arrive at the same conclusion. And a multidisciplinary view combines archaeology, genetics, geology, and even astronomy, ensuring that no single perspective dominates the interpretation. When viewed through this lens, orthodox theories hold firm ground, rooted in excavation and dating. Alternative ideas, astronomical calendars, healing powers, or even alien intervention, are harder to dismiss entirely, but they struggle to meet all the scientific criteria. They survive in the margins, where mystery leaves room for imagination. So, we arrive at a balance. Stonehenge is neither entirely explained nor entirely unknown. It is a place where myth and science overlap, where fact and speculation meet on the same windswept plain. But what does this mean for us today? Beyond curiosity, why does it matter whether farmers, priests, or something stranger built this monument? The answer lies not only in the past, but in how it shapes our vision of the future. Stonehenge is more than an archaeological puzzle. It is a mirror reflecting how we understand ourselves. Each generation projects its own questions onto the stones, seeking answers that speak to its time. For the Victorians, it was a temple of druids. For modern scientists, it is a testament to Neolithic engineering and social organization. Yet the enduring mystery also leaves room for something more profound. The possibility that humanity's past is richer and more complex than we imagine. The impact of Stonehenge on our perception of history is immense. It forces us to reconsider the abilities of so-called primitive societies. Without metal, wheels, or writing, they planned and executed a monument of staggering precision, aligning it with the movements of the sun and embedding it with meaning that lasted millennia. This challenges the narrative that technological progress is the only measure of sophistication. Stonehenge whispers that human creativity, cooperation, and spirituality can achieve wonders without the tools of empire. Looking to the future, the lessons of Stonehenge are just as significant. Technological advances like 3D scanning, genetic analysis, and artificial intelligence promise to peel back more layers of the mystery. Perhaps we will one day reconstruct the voices, rituals, or even the faces of those who gathered at the stones. Such discoveries could reshape not only archaeology, but our sense of continuity with the deep past. 2 scenarios emerge. The optimistic one envisions Stonehenge as a beacon of shared heritage. a reminder of what humans can achieve when united by vision and purpose. It inspires us to look at modern challenges, from climate change to cultural division, with the understanding that cooperation across communities is not just possible, but ancient. The cautious scenario warns of bias and fabrication, of how easily myths, pseudoscience, or nationalist agendas can twist ancient sites to serve modern narratives. History shows us that mystery can be both enlightening and dangerous, and so we return to the central question: who built Stonehenge, and why? The orthodox answer points to Neolithic farmers organized into vast networks of ritual and labor. Alternative voices suggest astronomers, shamans, or even influences beyond our world. The truth may never be known with certainty, but perhaps that is the real gift of Stonehenge, that it remains open, inviting each of us to bring our curiosity, our skepticism, and our imagination to its circle. So now the question passes to you. Was Stonehenge the work of determined farmers honoring their ancestors, a cosmic observatory tracking the dance of the heavens, or something beyond the reach of our understanding? Do you believe in the power of science to solve its secrets, or in the possibility that mystery is part of its meaning? The stones will not answer. They will continue to stand, silent and eternal, as they have for thousands of years. The debate belongs to us. If you've enjoyed this exploration of Stonehenge's mysteries, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Which theory do you find most convincing? And why? Subscribe for more journeys into the enigmas of ancient civilizations, where the past is never as distant as it seems.